The memory came back to me of being 13 years old and sitting in the back of my stepfather's Volkswagen van bus, and we're at a dead stop on the freeway here in San Diego. We've got these big freeways, 5 lanes, 6 lanes, whatever. We're on this freeway and we're sitting there at a dead stop because my mom had seen us driving on the freeway and she pulled her car in front of us. We had this woman in the van with us that was severely autistic. She had what they call handicapped, mentally and physically impaired. My stepdad and I were trying to we're sitting there in the van, and we got this woman named Sally in the front of the van, and I'm sitting in the back of my dad's van. And he had put a toolbox in his van because he was a mobile mechanic at the time. He worked on cars mobily. He'd go to people's homes and work on their cars. So he had this huge toolbox that he had mounted in his van, and he took all the seats out of the van. Back then we didn't have seatbelt laws here yet in San Diego, so I was sitting on this metal hump in the back of the van where there used to be a seat. Now it was just one big metal hump, and I had no seatbelt on or anything. And my mom was supposed to be gone that day, and I think she was supposed to be at the Kingdom Hall of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and my dad and I played hooky. And we I don't remember what he told my mom we were going to do, but we wanted to go help Sally to find a home somewhere she could be, where she could get the care that she needed. Because I was 13 years old at the time. Sally didn't leave our home until I was 16 years old, so she stayed there 3 years more. My mom had a terrible, she beat Sally up so bad, physically beat her, called her names, tortured this woman for being, mentally and physically slow. It was really a terrible thing that a person could do that to another human being, punish them for being different. But anyway, so my mom saw that we were about to find Sally, or she saw Sally in my dad's van. We were trying to find Sally somewhere where we could get her help, and because it was time, it was time. My stepdad was in such denial. Me and my sisters would get in trouble if we tried to tell on our mom to him that, hey, mom's beating up Sally again. Oh yeah, you're just making up stuff. Your mother told me Sally fell down. That's all. She fell down. Well, Sally fell down so much, man, according to my mom. But my mom beat her super bad. So my mom sees that Sally's in the van. Somehow my mom's car is right next to my dad's van on the freeway. We're looking, and it's just like, man, I thought I was in a nightmare. I just couldn't believe it, My mom was a monster to me. I never had a close connection ever with my mom, ever in my life. She was just a nightmare, a monster. And so there she was, and man, I just couldn't believe it. And so she's honking at my stepfather to pull over, pull over. And he's like, I cannot. He's from Germany, so I'm imitating his accent. I can't pull over. Are you crazy? What are you doing? And she gets in front of his car and hits the brakes and stops because she wants Sally so bad. Because if we're taking Sally somewhere, maybe something's going to get exposed about my mom, which eventually did. 3 years later, my mom went to jail for what she did to Sally. And when we were in the courtroom as a family, I'm telling you, the stuff that she confessed to, I thought I had seen everything, and there were things that was, oh my goodness, the most sadistic stuff you've ever heard of in your life. And this was my childhood. And there were things in my childhood I was just supposed to man up, toughen up, accept it, Oh, it's normal for a guy's mom to do all this crazy stuff, let alone what she did to me, which I won't mention. It was something I never really got help for ever in my life. Just supposed to man up, move forward, do what you're supposed to do as a Jehovah's Witness, get over it, move on. And so anyway, back to me being in the van. So my mom jumps out of the car, and on the freeway, you guys, there's people just hitting their brakes, and we're stopped dead on a freeway, you guys. And my mom jumps out of her car and runs to the driver's side or the passenger side of the door, begging Sally to come with her. Sally, please come with me. What are you doing? Please, Sally, please. And my dad's like, you crazy woman, go back in your car. And then a tow truck driver pulls up and says, do you guys need help? And he says, yeah. My stepdad says, yeah, tell this crazy woman to get back into her car. And I said, Mom, you are going to get us killed. And that's the last thing I remember. Although sometimes I get little flashes. I get flashes of being carried off in a helicopter and everything was black and they were telling me, don't throw up, don't throw up. I guess I was puking. What happened was somebody from behind had hit my dad's van at, maybe 70 or 65 miles per hour. I don't remember, but, was it the guy's fault? Of course, my parents tried to blame him. This guy, he hit you. You should sue him. My parents, they wanted me to sue this guy that hit us as if the whole thing was his fault. Because what happened was he hit my dad's van. And, I had no idea what happened to me. I was just told by my parents that I got thrown through the rear windshield of the van. Boom! I went backwards. But, I have a whole bunch of scars everywhere. I broke my chin. My eyebrow here has no bone left in it. It's all broken and gone. The back of my skull was shattered into pieces. They said they had to put it together like a puzzle. I was told that where I was injured in my skull, if my injury would have been 1/8 of an inch either higher or lower, I would be dead. If you guys saw my scar on the back of my neck, when I shaved my head, when I buzz cut my hair real short, sometimes I do that, you can see it. It's a cross. I've got a scar of a cross in the back of my head. And I was a Jehovah's Witness at the time. I didn't believe in the cross. Jesus didn't die on a cross. He died on a torture stake. It was a torture stake. So, anyway, yeah, what happened was I get flashes of what happened. And here's what I think happened. When that guy hit us from behind, I got launched forward. And I went face first into my dad's toolbox. And I think that's what busted up my eyebrow and perhaps broke my jaw. And then when I flew backward, my eyeballs, you guys, were blood red. Have you ever ruptured your eyeballs? Mine were blood red in both eyes. And then what happened was the van went straight up in the air. My stepdad told me he was sitting in the van. He says it was like slow motion. Suddenly he's looking at the ground. The van, the nose is right at the ground. The butt of the van is sticking straight up in the air. So what happened was I get launched forward. The van goes up. Boom! I hit my dad's toolbox. Then when the van comes back down, boom! The impact launched me backwards. And that's when I went through the rear windshield of the van. And maybe landed on the other guy's car that was behind us. I'm not quite sure. I didn't see it. I'm sure a lot of people that were on the freeway saw a little boy flying through the windshield of a van. That must have been crazy. I can't imagine what they saw. But anyway, so I went flying backwards. And I know one thing, I was on the ground. And when that van was up in the air and came back down, it launched me back. And so I must have hit that guy's car or something and then rolled down. Then my stepdad gets out and, he sees just me in the back because I wasn't in the van. He sees a little boy. That was me laying on the freeway with blood everywhere. And my mom, what happened to her was, she had opened Sally's door and begging Sally, pulling on Sally, come on, please come with me. And when the van was hit, the door of the van hit my mom and knocked her down. And she had this little scar right above her, like her eyebrow, a scar right here. So she was taken to the hospital, and I was life flighted to the hospital. I don't know how she went, if she was life flighted with me or if they got an ambulance. I don't know. Life flight is a helicopter. They come and pick you up. And, I used to get super car sick and seasick and airplane sick when I was a kid. So, I don't know if the injury and being in a helicopter at the same time just made me spin, but obviously I was throwing up and they didn't want me to throw up. Next thing I can remember is being in a hospital, laying in a bed and being wheeled into an operating room, and them putting something into my wrist and then putting a mask over my face. And I remember them saying count from 10 backward or something, and I just 10, 9, gone. And then, of course, waking up in the hospital. And it put me, I was in 8th grade. It put me out of school for a while, and it was interesting. 8th grade was when I was going to try to learn how to play guitar and instruments. I just thought, the school offered that kind of class. I don't remember if it was music class or what, but I had the desire to do that. And this was close to the beginning at the start of school, when we were just starting to learn notes and all that. And then when I came back to school, it was months later, and the class was way ahead of me. So the teacher, I think she let me just draw pictures in class, and I was so far behind, there was no getting me to catch up. And it was trippy because ever since that day, I felt like every time I went to school, I felt like I was behind. Even through high school, I just felt like I was always behind. And I lost the wind in my sail to learn music, even though I wanted to play the guitar so bad, maybe learn other things too, piano or whatever. But anyway, so that's what happened. I never really dealt with this before. I was just supposed to move on. My mom made me very aware that after the injury, she got hurt worse than me. Poor her. It was always about her. She got it so much worse than me. My part was easy, getting my head busted into pieces and breaking all my eyebrow bone and my chin. Yeah, that was much easier than what she got, a ding on the head. But it was always about comparing. Her life was just so much more difficult. And so was my stepdad's life. His life was so much more difficult than us spoiled kids. The life that we lived at our house, spoiled, lazy, good for nothing. We were just property. My stepfather has a daughter that was his daughter. She was born after me and my sister. That's his child. But as far as my older sister, we were just pieces of property. And so he told us, we were supposed to work on his property. He bought a piece of property in California, Southern California. And so our job was to clean that property, pull the weeds off that property, feed the animals on the property. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with chores. I'm not complaining. But we were only his property. And I just realized that recently. I'm like, gosh, I've never even thought about that till recently, till God, man. He's been taking me through some things and really working with me. One of the things he let me know from that 13-year-old boy I was talking about that went through a windshield is that he says, I was there with you. And supposedly me and Christ talked together in the spirit, and I don't remember it. Maybe someday he'll share it with me, but it's almost like he told me when I was 13 that I was going to come back and do something big. And that's a brand new thought for me. I never had thought that before, but it brought me to tears thinking that 13-year-old me when I went through that windshield, and I mean, I should have died. But I think I had a Christ moment, and I just wish I could remember it.